You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Lisa, owner of Zoom Room in Lincoln, Nebraska. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Polly. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for being back on the podcast. So we had a person write into the website and ask a question after your last podcast on what is clicker training?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And I know a lot of people they're familiar with the term clicker training, but they don't really understand what it means. So clicker training is a way for positive reinforcement training. What a clicker is just a little button that makes a click sound. So when you ask your dog to perform something like a sit, as soon as their butt hits the ground, you can click. It's an immediate response, and then you can offer them a treat after that click. So they're learning really quickly that click means they did something right, and then they're getting that added reinforcement of the treat afterwards. So it's a quick way to reinforce to your dog that they're doing something correctly, and that helps them train, and it's something that they can understand. And so when you start doing that more and more, then they're going to start listening for that click, and you pull out the clicker, and it's amazing. The dogs are like, "Ooh, what do they want me to do?" And they can quickly understand what you're asking of them. So that's a little bit about clicker training. It's a way to shape your dog into a well-behaved dog that you want to spend time with.
So a person clicks, and then the command, and then you give a treat?
Exactly. So you're going to ask them to do something. As soon as they perform it correctly, or as closely as correctly as maybe they're going to do at that time, you can click it. And that is basically telling them that that's correct. And then you're offering them a treat right away to reinforce that. And so it's a way to really communicate with your dog in a positive way.
Great. Well, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we have a store in Lincoln, Nebraska. You can give us a call anytime at 402-413-6410, or you can find us online at zoomroom.com/LNK, and we'd love to help you out.
Great. I'll put all your information in the show notes, and we look forward to having you back.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.